Lyons site. Services for the blind and visually impaired. Graphic of a lion's head in black and white on a gray background. Alright, I'm Keenan Fry. This is Lyons Site Services. We're now at the final part of this video tutorial. I'm narrating for you because I have my NVDA off because it messes with OBS. Which is the means that I am using to record this tutorial. I apologize if you find that inconvenient, but it messes with the recording, so I gotta kind of, do this all manually. So we're now looking at a different sine, a waveform. We've talked about sine waves, we talked about parabolas. Now we're talking about square waves, and we're also going to talk about one of my favorites, the sawtooth wave. So, why do these shapes matter? Well, I've taught math on and off as a sub, long-term, short-term, and as a tutor. And one of the things I constantly run into with students is they say, man, when am I going to use this stuff? What am I doing here? What does any of this matter? And student buy-in is essential because you want that intrinsic motivation. You want them to feel like, hey, this is useful, this is worthwhile, I want to be here, I want to be doing this. There's only one way you're going to get that, and that's appealing to their own native interests. So what we've got in front of us is a square wave, and now I'm switching tabs. Now we've got the sawtooth wave, and all the way here back at the beginning, we're now looking at a sine wave. These are the three main waveforms. We're back to the square wave now. And these three, sine wave, square wave, sawtooth wave, these are the three main waveforms. You technically get things like pink noise, which is its own entity unto itself, which I'm not going to discuss here because it's just too far out there. Pink noise is effectively a combination of all three of these, randomly created. So why do these things matter? How do you make it relate to a kid? Well, here's the magic of it all. I'm now going to show you something that's just going to blow your mind. This is the Arp Odyssey. It's a big old rectangular box. There are 59 dials, knobs, sliders with literally hundreds of variable attenuators. And then there's a little keyboard underneath. I believe it's something like 24 keys. It's a 2-octave keyboard, piano keyboard, black and white keys, And this is a old school monophonic single tone digital synthesizer. That sounds a little weird that I said it's old school, but it's also a digital synth. So a little bit of an explanation. The original Arp Odyssey was a analog synthesizer, and this is the early days of MIDI. And this is how digital synthesized music was made. And this is the Arp Odyssey. It's a updated, that's called NOS, New Old Stock. This is an NOS version of the old school Arp Odyssey. So this thing is really cool because one, it's all tactile. There's no screens, there's no nonsense. All the knobs have values, so you can just braille out labels for this whole thing, and then the kid can navigate it by touch. It's pure tactile. So it's just this smorgasbord of just crazy dials and knobs. It's the mad scientist laboratory of sound. And this thing is cool because it has the three primary sound waves. It has a sine wave. We're now looking at the sine wave graph here. I'm going to play it. It has the square wave. Sorry, let me do that again. I'm manually navigating the square wave. Here we go. Let me try that one more time. Just a second. Okay, that's that. What? Okay, this is a weird toggle. This is a really weird toggle function. Okay. Ah, there we go. Okay, I apologize for that delay. So I was toggling between the two pitches of a square wave. A square wave is a rectangle. The shape of the wave is indicative of the name. So it's like two squares stacked on top of each other, which forms a rectangle. So it's over one, up one from the negative axis. So negative x value over one, negative y value up one to the neutral x axis. That's the x-intercept. Y value positive 1 into the positive range of the y-axis. X value over 1 still in the positive range of the y-axis. And then it goes back down, negative 1, still in the neutral range, now on the x-intercept. And then down one more, now into the negative range of the x. The negative range of the y. Ah, geez. It's hard to verbalize this. Down two y values over one x value, up two y values over one x value, down two y values. As you go down one y value, you hit the x-intercept. You go one more down. Now you're into the negative zone. That's why it's confusing, because you're moving along the y-axis, but you're crossing the x-intercept. That's a better way of verbalizing it. Let's play that again. That's in the negative. You heard the static. Now we're going to be in the positive. The pitch is going to be higher. No static. Okay, listen to the static again. Let's listen to just the negative 3 times. You heard that static. Now let's listen to the positive 3 times. Okay, so you can hear that gap, and it's a vertical ascension, vertical descension, so it's a very sharp drop off. So now we're going to get into the sawtooth wave, which is a combination of a sine wave, square wave, and the sawtooth wave is described by the namesake. It looks like a sawtooth, so think of a vertical bandsaw, a spinning bandsaw. It's got a sharp drop, or excuse me, has a sharp, not a drop. This one is a reverse sawtooth. So it has a sharp ascension, gradual drop off, sharp descension, gradual drop off. So that is a reverse sawtooth. A forward sawtooth is gradual ascension, sharp drop. So it looks like a bunch of triangles put next to each other with the right angle of the triangle facing to the left. That is a reverse sawtooth. And then a forward facing sawtooth is the right angle of the triangle is facing to the right hand side. So let's listen to this sawtooth. Okay, so halfway through it went into the positive area of the x-axis, and the pitch changed. That was when it crossed the y-intercept. And you can hear how the static is fluttering on and off very quickly. That almost resembles a noise gate, the way it's turning on and off, like you're flickering a light switch really fast, like you're attenuating a light. That's how fast the drop-off is and how fast the ascent is. That's why it's called a sawtooth, because it's very jagged. Okay, let's listen to that 3 times real quick. So those are the 3 basic waveforms. And this Arp Odyssey, which I was kind of going off about, can create all 3 of those waveforms by turning on a few knobs, and then the rest of the dials alter it. And then you play the piano on it, and the sine wave modulates the piano. That's how a synth works. You have a piano, you have above it the synthesizer options, which then modulate and attenuate the functions of the piano. So the reason I like this is because kids will say, why does this matter? Why should I care? And the answer is, you can make music out of this. So if a kid gets a worksheet that says, make a sine wave, make a square wave, make a sawtooth wave, very common stuff. Those are the three basic waveforms. You'll guarantee draw graphs for all three of those, at least in Algebra 2. Guaranteed. You'll do that in Algebra 2. Most kids have to take Algebra 2 to graduate high school. Algebra 1 is the official requirement to graduate high school. You have to pass Algebra 1 to graduate high school in California. But a lot of kids will go up through Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, Pre-Calc. Usually freshman year they do Algebra 1. But, you know, Algebra 2 is pretty common, and you'll graph those out, and you'll start graphing them out in Algebra 1. And the point is to make the concept not just, you know, hey, here's a graph that you can't even see or interact with. You know, Desmos makes that accessible, but then taking accessibility to the next step, it's like, here's the graph that you've been working with. You've been learning how sine waves work, and now you get to modulate that and see what happens when you make the sine wave taller. Let's make the sine wave taller, and let's make the space between the compression and rarefaction steep. Let's make the space between the compression and rarefaction wide. Remember, compression is the peak, rarefaction is the valley. So you can kind of allow the student to modulate their experience. This Arp Odyssey literally is a musical representation of what Desmos is doing. Desmos is like a simplified version of an old school analog manual synth. There's no screens or anything. This is all just dials, faders, knobs, which is super cool because it's very accessible. You have to label everything, and that's probably the only thing you have to do to make it, you know, legible to the student. But there's no need to actually have a screen reader or like some alt text or whatever. It's just put the box in front of the kid, and they're in the sandbox, and everything's prearranged. I am in the marketplace to get one of these. One, because I'm a musician and I find them fun. But two, I like being able to bring something like this to my lessons, because it may seem excessive or irrelevant, but really what this is doing is teaching the kid that the lessons they're learning are valuable, that they're not just in math class because someone told them to sit in math and sit still and listen to the teacher. You know, sit still, do your work. You know, that very domineering sort of impression that sometimes high school can have on kids. It's really about making the lesson plan fun. It's really about making it engaging, showing them how it has real world applications and how it goes beyond just what it is they're doing in class for the sake of meeting a graduation requirement. So yeah, this is the Arp Odyssey. Really cool piece of technology, very user friendly. It looks crazy because there's like 59 dials on it, and then there's hundreds of thousands of combinations and faders and knobs and doodads and gizmos. You know, it looks like a mad scientist laboratory, but it's very straight ahead. The Arp Odyssey is segmented into vertical columns, which are organized by orange boxes. So there's high contrast to it. The text is in white and is surrounded by orange boxes. All of the faders have clear labels. Everything is spaced out in a fairly reasonable manner. With a little bit of finesse, a student can learn to memorize the order of the faders, how the vertical column organization works as you move from left to right across it. And then there's the friendly keyboard at the bottom. So yeah, I really like this because this is a way of taking, you know, an abstract concept and relating it to the student. You know, you can make music with this. You can do all kinds of stuff with the sine waves, square waves, and sawtooth waves that you're going to have to do in your math class, and just make it generally more fun. So that's it for this tutorial. I'm going to talk about one last thing. This is a rotary numpad. I don't call these numpads, I call these 10 keys. It is a number keyboard. It's called a 10 key because it's got 0 through 9 on it. Those are the 10 keys. They're used commonly in retail. This thing works really well. It is USB, so if your student's using a tablet, you'll have to get a USB adapter to plug into the tablet, like a dongle attachment or something. But these things work really well when using something like the Desmos Calculator because it is a dedicated keypad. It's helpful to have a dedicated keypad because you're not going to accidentally hit a letter key, which has a function associated with it, like E represents sigma in mathematics. So it helps to have a delineated number pad or 10 key that's separate from a regular keyboard so that the kid can just quickly type in their numbers, hit a plus sign, a minus sign, multiplication, division, whatever, and not accidentally hit a letter key that's then going to change the function. So like, I believe if you type in C, you get the COS function, or if you type in X, you get a variable function in Desmos. So it helps to have a dedicated unit that just keeps the mental and physical tracking of how you're entering stuff into Desmos a little bit more separate, a little bit more organized. I'm going to do a tutorial on how to memorize the 10 key using 3 fingers, how to do it, blind. We used to do that in our retail training when I worked back at PetSmart. PetSmart has a pretty good AT department. They have one of the best departments for teaching their retail cashiers how to function on the register, but they also have a really good dedicated AT department that makes the website accessible. PetSmart, their competitor, does the same thing. I really enjoyed my time working in retail because it taught me a lot of practical lessons, and I try to also integrate those into my lessons with my students because I think that more often than not, a high school student's going to want some pocket change. They're going to have to work a retail job because that's the experience that they have. That's the level of qualification they have. I think it teaches a lot about, self-determination, responsibility, handling one's own finances, obviously handling one's own scheduling. It's also pro-social. So, in order to, set up a kid so that they can have a retail job in their summertime and save some money, for when they want to go out. I also think the 10 key is useful for that. So the 10 key and these lessons, they integrate into a lot of other fields. Teaching a 10 key to use Desmos also relates to the kid working a job. And, that's all part of the ECC. All right, I've rambled on enough on this video. It's 18 minutes long. I'm glad the other ones were shorter. Broke up this video series to make it a little bit more digestible for you folks. New tutorials coming soon on the 10 key and other things. I hope you like what I'm doing on this channel. There'll be more going forward on Lyons site. That will be the designated channel for all my VI related tutorials. I got another channel that you can find linked in the description of my main channel page for Lyons site, and you can go see other videos that I do over there. But yeah, thanks for following me to the new channel, and I appreciate your time, and I'll see you again soon. I'm Keenan Fry. This is Lyons Site Services. Thank you for your time. Check the description box for links to Desmos, NVDA, the Arp Odyssey, and my YouTube channel homepage. Regular updates on blind and visually impaired tutorials will be available for all kinds of topics. Thanks for watching.